Hello and welcome to another 2021 NFL mock draft. We're going to be doing another first round mock draft. I was going to go ahead and get in and do a second round mock draft, but a lot I feel like has changed about some of the things I want in the first round. There's also the Carson Wentz trade. And so I'm just going to do another first round, and then in the next couple days, I'm going to go ahead and get you guys a second round mock draft out that will continue from this mock draft. So go ahead and subscribe if you guys want to catch that video. But anyways, we're going to jump right into it. Now, I feel bad for Jaguars fans here because it's just Trevor Lawrence. There's nothing to really debate about, and it's kind of boring at this point, but he's just the best player. So we're just going to quickly jump that. Going to stick with Zach Wilson. I still think he's the second best quarterback in this draft. His arm talent's just insane, and some of the off-platform plays that he makes is just incredible. So I have them going Zach Wilson. I still think those are the best two players in this draft. Not at quarterback, so at the most valuable position, which those teams desperately need. Now, another pick that I've really liked that you don't see everywhere is Penei Sewell to the Dolphins. Penei Sewell might be the second best player in this draft behind Trevor Lawrence, just pound for pound. And if you're the Dolphins, you don't pass on something like that. If they like Tua, then cool. Don't be dumb and draft a Devontae Smith, a Jamar Chase or something. Take Penei Sewell, the best tackle in the draft, best tackle prospect we've seen in a while since maybe Trent Williams. Take him here, secure that tackle, and basically look at it as you just traded Laramie Tunsil for Penei Sewell, and you got an extra, I believe, first round pick out of it. So that's a steal of a trade for the Dolphins. Look at it, because Penei Sewell will probably be better than Laramie Tunsil. But moving on for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, for the Atlanta Falcons, some people have quarterback, but I think personally that the Atlanta Falcons will try and run with Matt Ryan because I still think he's decent. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have the Atlanta Falcons trading the number 4 overall to the Panthers. I'm going to have the Panthers, if I can somehow find them in here. All right, so I'm going to have them trading with the Panthers. Panthers get 4. They basically swap picks. There's obviously be having something to go into it, but this is just a first round, so I'm just going to flip those pictures so we can see. Panthers are going to jump up and grab their guy, Justin Fields. I really want to see what Justin Fields can do in that Joe Brady offense with someone like McCaffrey behind him and then DJ Moore on the outside. I think that's a better option than mortgaging their whole team for Deshaun Watson because I think that they have a lot of young pieces on that defense and a couple good playmakers on offense with McCaffrey and Moore. And I think just a quarterback like Justin Fields, where he's not going to have to go out there and make these insane plays. He's just got to play within Joe Brady's system and make some throws. And that's exactly what Justin Fields can do. So I have Justin Fields going number 4. Now at number 5 for the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm going to have the Cincinnati Bengals going Jamar Chase. I don't love the pick for the Bengals. I think they have decent receivers. I think they have a lot of other needs. But I think part of it could be trying to keep Joe Burrow happy. I mean, we've seen what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase did in college. I mean, a lot of Jamar Chase's production, I mean, he's a great receiver, don't get me wrong. But Joe Burrow just threw it to Jamar Chase a lot, and he made some plays. So that connection could, I feel like, be dangerous in the NFL. And if your guy Penei Sewell's off the board, I feel like the only options for the Bengals are get someone like Jamar Chase or Pitts or trade back. And I could see a team trading up for Trey Lance maybe here. But I think the Bengals would be happy sitting with Jamar Chase, the best receiver in the draft. Next up, we're going to Philadelphia Eagles, who just traded Carson Wentz to the Colts, and it's definitely Hurts season around here. I'm all aboard the Hurts train. But with that being said, there's one thing that really convinced me. Some of the guys at PFF were saying, they're basically like, you don't want to be stuck in a situation like Denver is right now. Denver's in a quarterback purgatory where they took a quarterback who could be good, and they're in this situation where every year he kind of gets a little bit better, but not necessarily good enough, and you're just picking between 8 and 14 every single year, saying, oh, one more year. But when you have a guy on the board like Trey Lance with the athletic ability that he has, I think the Eagles take Trey Lance here, roll with Jalen Hurts into the season, and then, honestly, if you roll with Jalen Hurts in the season, either Jalen Hurts balls, and you can probably get some return on Trey Lance. It might not look like the best pick, but at least Jalen Hurts is balling, and that's all we really care about. And then worst case scenario, Jalen Hurts just is all right, not that guy. Trey Lance can sit a year. He's a guy that would probably be best sitting a year out of this class, if I had to pick anyone that would gain the most from sitting a year, it'd be Trey Lance. So he can sit a year under Jalen Hurts, and then if Jalen Hurts does all right, we can flip Hurts and Trey Lance can be there next year. Now, it would be hilarious to have the Eagles get rid of one North Dakota State quarterback for another. That's a whole different story, but I like that Trey Lance pick for the Eagles at 6. You don't want to be stuck in quarterback purgatory. You can never have too many. And Howie Roseman has shown that he's aggressive on the quarterback market, so that wouldn't surprise me if they went Trey Lance there at 6. Now at 7, if I am the Detroit Lions, we got a new head coach in Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, you've seen the interview. As weird as it was, you can already kind of tell the players he likes, those hard-nosed players, and I think Micah Parsons fits right into that. I think there are guys like Devontae Smith, who could be another, or Jalen Waddle, someone that they could get for offense, but honestly, Goff's not it. I don't think Goff's the answer. I don't think they think Goff's the answer. So let's build this defense. Let's not go put out a Devontae Smith with Jared Goff and have him just not produce. Let's go out and build that defense, and then we're probably going to be bad this year, and next year when we get our quarterback, then we can start looking in that receiver and building that offense. But for now, let's get that defense back where it needs to be, and Micah Parsons seems like a great kind of Dan Campbell person. There's been the allegations about the bullying. Dan Campbell's talking about biting knees off, so maybe Micah Parsons will fit right in there. Now we have the Atlanta Falcons, who come into a great scenario. They end up trading back and still getting probably, because honestly, out of these guys, the only player I can see them take is Lance or Chase, but they're going to trade back in this scenario and get their guy in Jalen Waddle, a speedster who you can pair out there, gives you some flexibility with Julio Jones if you want to move on from him, and that's just another weapon. I mean, you can never have enough weapons in this league. And Jalen Waddle, I think that'd be a great trade for the Falcons to get out of there. They could look at corner, even though they just drafted Trayvon Diggs last year. They could look to get another corner. Kyle Pitts could be interesting, but they just traded for tight end. Even though I know he can't have enough weapons, Hayden Hurst might not be the best, but I still think Jalen Waddle is a great pick. Now we're going on to the two most consensus picks in I think every single mock draft that you're going to see are 9 and 10 corners between Caleb Farley and Patrick Surtain. Now the Broncos here, I'm going to have them going Patrick Surtain just because the Broncos are looking at Drew Lock as like this, they got to get something going, and Patrick Surtain is that more sure thing, higher floor kind of player. He's a long dude, kind of like a Richard Sherman build. He's long, he's not that fast, but he'll play out there and he'll get up in your face, and he's a more pro ready guy. Like you can stick him on the field day one, and I think he'll produce. Not saying Caleb Farley can't. I'm just saying Patrick Surtain's more there. So I have him for the Broncos, a team that's trying to get there now. And then here's my thing for the Dallas Cowboys. They have already proven that they're a team that will just take best player available, even with needs, as we saw last year with CeeDee Lamb. So yet again, I have them going best player in the draft with an interesting pick. Last time I had them going Trey Lance. Interesting. Don't know if that'll necessarily happen. I just kind of wanted to see what the reaction would be like that. But we're going Kyle Pitts. I could actually really see this because you've seen they want to just take... Kyle Pitts is by far the best player on the board right now out of the players that's left. And him to that offense, I mean, Dak Prescott or Andy Dalton or whoever the quarterback ends up being for the Dallas Cowboys would have no excuse to put up 30 points a game, especially in a weaker division in the NFC East, where if you score 30 points a game, you're probably winning the NFC East. So I think Kyle Pitts would be a very interesting pick that gives them more flexibility to move on from Gallup. And then you can have CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Kyle Pitts, and you won't miss a beat with Gallup leaving with that pick. Now falling to New York Giants, who want to join that train of scoring points in the NFC East. I think a great fall for them. That probably will happen. Devontae Smith, I have him as my third best receiver. Now, one thing I do want to mention, a lot of people arguing the whole Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase kind of argument with the whole Devontae Smith winning Heisman. I'm probably going to try and plan on coming out with a video talking about the three. But in short, I'm just going to say Devontae Smith may have been... First of all, Jamar Chase didn't even play this year, so it's hard to compare stats. Devontae Smith could have been the better college receiver, but we're looking at them as prospects right now, not college football players. And Devontae Smith is the third best prospect out of those receivers. So that's just what I'm going to say there. And then I'll probably get into a video. Make sure you guys subscribe so you guys can keep up with all the videos. I'll probably get one out comparing the 3 receivers and why I have them ranked like this. And I'm not the only one. A lot of people have them ranked like this. I think ESPN's really the only market that really has Devontae Smith as their number one. They're really high on Devontae Smith. So a little too high for my liking, but I could see it. Just there's some concerns with me about his frame, his speed, and everything. But don't get me wrong, he's still going 11. I still think he's one of the top 10 players in this draft. Moving on, San Francisco 49ers. This is a dream scenario. Caleb Farley falls right into the hands of them. They're going to be rough at corner. Richard Sherman, it's either announced or basically announced that Richard Sherman's going to be leaving. They need a lot of help out there. Verrett's going to be a free agent. Don't know if they re-sign him or not. But even if they do, Caleb Farley come in, get that defense back to what it was when they went to the Super Bowl. And if they make a move for a quarterback, they're going to be looking nice. This could be another pick that's not theirs, whether they trade it for a quarterback, whether a team trades up for a quarterback, whether they trade up for a quarterback. But I think that's a great pick for them if Caleb Farley falls right to their lap. Moving on to the Los Angeles now, which I almost said San Diego. I'm going to have to go in Rashawn Slater. I think he's the best lineman still on the board. There's questions whether he plays tackle or guard. But the Chargers can use almost any O-line at this point. There's no really great O-lineman on that team. And we have a guy like Justin Herbert who's proven that he's probably going to be that franchise guy. You don't want him getting hurt. We saw what happened to Joe Burrow. Don't let that happen to you. Get yourself Rashawn Slater. Probably a top 10 guy in this draft. He could be, if he was just a guard, we'd definitely be talking about him as the best guard in the draft. And if you slide him at tackle, he's probably still the second best tackle right behind Penei Sewell. So moving on to the Minnesota Vikings. Now the Minnesota Vikings there's a lot of places they can go. They're kind of like, they don't have too many gaping holes per se. But I think one of their biggest holes we saw was pass rush. Even with Danielle Hunter being out and he'll come back, they still need pass rush. And for me, it's between Gregory Rousseau and Kwity Paye. And I'm actually going to go Gregory Rousseau. Personally, I maybe would go with Kwity Paye. I'm starting to lean towards him as a better. But Gregory Rousseau he's a freak. He took the year off with COVID. He opted out. But he's probably just getting better. I'm not saying he's probably better because of that. The only hard part is we haven't seen him. If he would have played for Miami this year and instead of opting out and had a productive season, he'd probably be a top 10 pick. And I think teams are going to look at it like that, and that's why I could see him going over Kwity Paye, even though I feel like they're really close. And then moving on, next pick, New England Patriots, Kwity Paye. This should be an easy pick. They should turn the card in right when it hits. They had absolutely no pass rush. They're struggling on defense in a lot of places. Kwity Paye is probably the best player on the board. The only other player I would even consider for them at this pick is J.C. Horn, because you got to pair the JCs back up in New England. But also, J.C. Horn would be an ideal fit for that defense. I mean, they love man coverage, and that's exactly what J.C. Horn is. But I think edge rusher is more valuable, and with Kwity Paye still on the board, I think that's where they go. Plus, they still have some corners, even though we don't know about J.C. Jackson and Stephon Gilmore. Both one of them or none of them could be back. But I think they just go Kwity Paye, even though J.C. Horn could be another great pick if they did want to go in that direction. Now, moving on to the Arizona Cardinals. I have them going Christian Darrisaw. I think he's the next best tackle off the board. I think they could still upgrade that O-line. It's not awful, but just the story of this draft is protecting your young quarterbacks. It's either, in this draft, you're either getting your young quarterback or you're protecting your young quarterbacks. I think they need to protect their young quarterback because they already have a good young quarterback. And Christian Darrisaw, he's the best player on the board, probably still available, unless you look at J.C. Horn. But I think they need to look at that offensive line and get Christian Darrisaw. Next up for the Las Vegas Raiders. I have Las Vegas Raiders going Christian Barmore. Their D-line they've put so much into that D-line with high draft picks and just haven't had any return. And he's a very, very Mike Mayock kind of pick, I feel like, down in Las Vegas. You know, the Alabama, Clemson guys, they love them down there. Christian Barmore should be a solid fit. Slide him right in. to that D tackle, pair him with Maurice Hurst, and you should have a good interior D line because their defense was awful, and that's the first place I think they need to start is targeting Christian Barmore, the best D tackle in this class, especially because if you want a D tackle in this class, if we look at the other D tackles, there's not a lot of good ones. Davion Nixon is up and down depending on the boards you look at. He's all right, and then Unwuzurike, he's just basically your run stuffer, kind of like Vita Vea, but Vita Vea is a better pass rusher. But he's a run stuffer. You're not going to take a run stuffer in the first round. He'll probably go second or third. But it's a weaker D-line class, or D-tackle class, sorry. So if you can get a guy like Christian Barmore in this class, I think he'll rise up boards because of how weak this D-tackle class really is. Now we go on to the Miami Dolphins. So if we look back, remember Miami Dolphins, we have Penei Sewell right off the bat. Now, there's a couple ways they could go here. You already got your O-lineman. You could look at defense. I mean, the defense was good. You could always get better. But I think they need to look offense because their defense will get right. They'll get stops. They've shown that they're really good. So that we need to look at offense. And it's hard here. Okay, this one. Okay. There's a couple decent receivers. Bateman, Tony, Moore, and the other Moore. Are 4 probably first-round receivers. Kadarius Toney could fall into the second. Elijah Moore also could. But I think 18 is just a little too high. So what I'm doing at the Dolphins, we're sitting here. We're looking at the quarterbacks. But we're not looking at the quarterbacks. There's another team that is looking at the quarterbacks that might like to move up to grab themselves a quarterback. So what we're going to do is we're going to trade here. We're going to have a trade I'm so bad at finding these teams on here. The Miami Dolphins are going to trade back with the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are going to trade up. Now, like I said, with the other one, they're going to have to give up more than just 20. It's not going to be a pick swap, obviously. But there's a lot of good players they can try and acquire from the Saints because the Saints might kind of do a fire sale to get rid of contracts like Ryan Ramczyk and Marshawn Lattimore. So you can maybe snag someone like that in that deal, throw in some extra. You got a lot of draft capital, throw in some of that. But we have the New Orleans Saints who are in cap hell right now, trading up to get Mac Jones, who I think would be a great fit in that Sean Payton off. Sean Payton can do a really job, I feel like, building an offense around Mac Jones. I think they're going to trade up, go get their quarterback, and the Saints fans might not enjoy it. You might want to go with Jameis Winston, but I could see them getting aggressive for a quarterback like Mac Jones, who some people are really high on, some people are really low on. I'm kind of in the middle. Would I be a fan of Mac Jones? No, but I know some teams love his production and what he's done. And if you get him in a good offense, he's shown he can produce. So the Saints should have a really good offense. So I think that could work out very well for the Saints if they want to do that. Now moving on to the Washington professional football team. I think I said Redskins, sorry. Sorry if I said that in the last video. It's just, I've called them that for so long. But the Washington professional football team sitting here at pick 19. I think whoever they go, if they want to rock with Heineke, whatever his name is at quarterback, I think you need to get him some weapons. So we're looking at receivers. They have their true number one guy on the outside in Terry McLaurin. So they want a little gadget guy who they can create some plays for and make some big plays. I'm going Rondale Moore. I like Rondale more than Kadarius Toney in this spot. I think Rondale Moore is a more polished receiver. Tony's special after the ball, but Rondale Moore knows how to get open. I think he's kind of being slept on a little because he didn't play much because of this whole COVID year for Purdue, but his freshman year and sophomore year tape, I believe he played some of sophomore year. Maybe I'm getting the years confused, but it's insane. The dude is fast. He was torching Ohio State, and he's just an incredible player, and I think he'd be a great fit for the Washington professional football team. They're at 19. Now moving on to the Chicago Bears, who did not win the highly anticipated Great Wentz sweepstakes. So they're sitting here with Trubisky. Will they keep him? Who knows? There's definitely no quarterbacks available. Last time I remember in my draft I had Mac Jones, but he's off the board. Definitely not taking Kyle Trask, the pocket quarterback himself, at pick 20. I think what they do is if you're them, you need a lot of. It's hard for the Bears. They're in a really bad spot because you need a lot of offense. Your defense is good, but there's not a lot of offense available here. And that's what makes it hard because the best players on the board are all defense. J.C. Horn's still on the board. Owusu Koromora still on the board. And I'm going to take this philosophy when I'm trading. Trading up usually never works out if you're trading up for a non-quarterback. We've seen it with the Marcus Davenports in the past in trades like that. I'm not a fan of trading up for another player, so I don't think they'll find a team that will trade up. And therefore, I think they're going to do a classic Chicago Bears and take a little bit of a reach on a guy like Rashad Bateman. Some people have him slipping out of the first round in their recent mock drafts. I think that's absurd. Yes, he's not the fastest guy, but neither is Davante Adams. Like, the great receivers don't have to be fast. His releases and his route running, he's definitely the most crisp receiver and most polished in a lot of those areas coming out of this draft class. He had an amazing year last year when he played. Yet again, had another rough kind of COVID season. Don't remember if he opted out or not, but Rashad Bateman I still think is definitely probably up there for the polished receivers after the top 3, obviously. So I think the Bears might take it. I don't think it's an awful pick, but I just think they're in a bad situation with how the board fell out, and I don't know who else would really trade up for a J.C. Horn or someone in this scenario. But then moving on to the Indianapolis Colts. Now, they're another team that is in an interesting situation. They just trade for Wentz, but they didn't have to give up this first round, which is really good for them. And they're going to be going for it this year. They have a year or two. They traded probably their first round pick for Wentz. That'll probably, if Wentz plays like we think he might, then probably your first round pick is gone. So you're trying to win now. Now, J.C. Horn isn't necessarily the Colts type of corner. They like the more, I guess he's actually, they play kind of a Tampa 2, but I feel like J.C. Horn can fit. I think they'll fit around him. It's not the greatest scheme fit, honestly. J.C. Horn, because J.C. Horn, he wants to be up in your face, manning, playing press coverage. And they do run more of a Tampa 2 defense there in Indianapolis. So I'm not wrong because I was studying some of the Rich Gannon, the Colts DB coach that's now the Eagles DB coordinator. I saw a lot of stuff about Tampa 2 kind of quarters defense. But if they run a more quarters defense, which I'm not, like I said, I'm not totally sure. They might run more quarters defense. J.C. Horn could definitely play in there if you run some quarters match kind of coverages because he can play out there. I mean, we saw with Xavier Rhodes and Rock Ya-Sin, they like those kind of longer guys who can play that press man. So I think if they run J.C. Horn in that, he would actually be a great fit for them there at 21. Moving on to 22, the Tennessee Titans. Now you're going to see a lot of edge to the Titans in mock drafts, and I'm sticking with that. I'm sticking with edge. I'm going Jaelan Phillips. I think he's one of the best. He could be up there for, honestly, the best pass rusher in this draft. The only scary thing is the health concerns, a lot of concussions. It's kind of like a thing like with Maurice Hurst a couple years ago. I don't think he'll fall like Maurice Hurst did because that was heart issues, which is a different story. Could be, I've heard things that he could be like a concussion away from not playing, but he's special, man. He's a special guy. So I think you take a risk like that on a guy like Jaelan Phillips, where you are, especially because they've been struggling with pass rush. They brought in guys. They brought in Harold Landry. They've brought in Jadeveon Clowney. They've brought in guys to try and pass rush, and they just haven't necessarily got it. So hopefully Jaelan Phillips will fill that role. If Jadeveon Clowney comes back and they want to run him and Landry, they might not go Jaelan Phillips. But as of recording this, I don't know if Jadeveon Clowney is coming back, so I'm going to go with Jaelan Phillips, and they'll probably let Jadeveon Clowney walk in free agency. Well, he's a free agent, but they won't re-sign him. Then moving on to the Jets, we got Zach Wilson for them. If you remember back here at 2, sitting back here in the first round, they're a team that has a lot of holes. I think they need to just go best player available. Their pass rush was awful. They're going to go into this edge market that's still going. And I'm going to go with Azeez Ojulari. He's one of my favorite players in this draft. I mentioned it last time. Plays big in big games. I love what he does. He's got great bend. He's athletic. I think they need pass rush, and he would fit right in perfectly in that defense. Not necessarily as good as Nick Bosa. Not even really. They're kind of similar players. Not really. But we saw with that Robert Saleh defense, edge rushing, if you can rush with 4, which is what they did in San Francisco, then that's how their defense was so successful. So he's going to try and build up that D line with already Quinnen Williams in the middle to rush with 4 so they can cover. So get yourself an edge rusher and let yourself rush with 4. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers going with... I'm going to have the Pittsburgh Steelers going Elijah Vera Tucker. Their run game was awful, and you might say they need a new running back. Honestly, run games aren't that correlated to running backs. If you look at a lot of the stats and everything, O-line contributes way more to rushing yards and run game than running backs. And I know they have a decent couple O-linemen, but they're getting old. They're moving in and out. Allows some trade flexibility. Elijah Vera Tucker, one of the best players still on the board. Could play tackle most likely, as you can see here, listed as guard. Will play guard in the NFL. And I think just put as much value as you can into that O-line. It's kind of like what the Buccaneers did in the secondary. The Buccaneers said, we're just going to keep drafting secondary until we get it right. And look, they won a Super Bowl. I think the Steelers need to do that to O-line. Keep drafting O-line until you can run the ball, because running the ball is something you need to do in this league, and that's honestly why they struggled at the end of the season in the postseason, is because they couldn't run the ball. Get yourself a great O-lineman. You can get yourself a running back in free agency or draft. Definitely don't draft one this early. It'd be an awful move to get Najee Harris or Travis Etienne. Don't reach on a running back. Get yourself O-line and get a decent running back later on. Moving next to Jacksonville Jaguars, they got themselves Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall in the draft. They're back on the board at 25. They're another team, a lot of holes, probably going to go best player available. Now, there's a couple linebackers. They don't have awful linebackers, and Telvin Smith still isn't playing. I assume he's not coming back, but you never really know. So they could definitely look at some of these top linebackers. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have them going O-line, and I'm going to have them going Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State. I think he's one of the more polished tackles out of these guys. I think some of these guys like Leatherwood and Mayfield could be looked more at as guards, whereas Tevin Jenkins, I think he definitely played tackle in the league. He's going to go in there and help protect Trevor Lawrence. They have a weaker O-line, so get him in there. You saw what happened. I'm going to keep bringing it up with Joe Burrow. In this draft class, like I said, you're either getting a young quarterback or you're protecting your young quarterback. They got their young quarterback. Now they need to protect him. That's what Tevin Jenkins does for them. Now, going on to one of the most mocked things. Like I said, there was probably the most mocked you're going to see is corners 9 and 10. The next most mocked thing you're going to see is Owusu-Koramoah to the Browns here, and I'm going with it too. I mean, he's by far the best player available on here, and I think he'd be a great fit. I mean, they have a hole at linebacker. The only thing that scares me is Owusu-Koramoah. I guess he was technically a linebacker in college, but he didn't really play linebacker. I think he actually played more snaps at slot corner than he did linebacker. He's kind of more of that safety linebacker hybrid kind of play all around the field. But he definitely can play linebacker. There was a couple games where he actually did slide into true linebacker, and he played well. And he's just a gadget player that they can mess with. I don't ever want to see Andrew Sandejo on an NFL football field anymore. And if you're a Browns fan watching, you don't want to either. Trust me, we had to deal with him on the Eagles a year ago. You never want to see Andrew Sandejo touch that field again. So get Owusu-Koramoah, who not necessarily the exact same role, but he'll help flex that you don't have to play him anymore, and you Browns fans will thank that pick later. Moving on to the Baltimore Ravens, they definitely need some help on their offense, and I think they need to look... They could look at edge rushers. The only guy I'd still take in the first round out of the guys left is Jason Owe. I don't know if I'd take Asai or Basham maybe at the end of the round. Could look at corner, like you saw with the Buccaneers. You know, it's a copycat league. Look at who's winning. Buccaneers win. They put tons of draft capital into that secondary. Not an awful idea. You know, actually, I'm going to go Trayvon Moehrig here. He's one of my favorite players in the draft. Not because I like TCU or anything, but he's just so versatile. He can play slot corner. He can play free safety, play a more box safety role, whatever you want. He'll go in there and really help out that secondary and follow that template that the Buccaneers set to put Because if you can stop the passing game, that's a huge advantage in this league. And they already have great corners, so pair a guy like Moehrig back there, and you're going to be looking good. That Moehrig could be what they thought Earl Thomas was going to be. I don't think he'll be as good as Earl Thomas, but Earl Thomas was never... He played one season with the Ravens, but he was kind of up and down, so Moehrig could be what you thought he was going to be long-term for you guys. We on the Dolphins are back up on the board. If we look back, the Dolphins got themselves Penei Sewell, number 3 overall. And now back on the board at 28. I remember they traded their pick with the New Orleans Saints earlier. Right there at 18. They come back, and they're looking at a similar board. Like I said, when they were there earlier, the positions they were looking at didn't really go. You got a couple receivers go, but that's about it. They're going to come in here, get themselves a new weapon for Tua, and it's Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore is the best pure slot guy if you want to look at in this draft. He knows how to get open. You see a guy like J.C. Horn going at 21. Elijah Moore made J.C. Horn look silly when they played each other. Now I get it, J.C. Horn, maybe not best fit for the slot, but he tried following Elijah Moore, and Elijah Moore torched him all day. Elijah Moore's a great receiver. I see him going above guy like Kadarius Toney just because Kadarius Toney's not too polished in his route running. He can definitely get better. He's very special after the catch, but Elijah Moore is a great receiver. Kadarius Toney's a great weapon. Elijah Moore's a great receiver. Tua likes to throw to open guys, doesn't like to throw a lot of contested. He's going to sit there, throw short to open guys. Elijah Moore will give you exactly that across the middle of the field from the slot. Now, moving on to 29, we have the Green Bay Packers. Now, a lot of people want the Green Bay Packers to select receiver, and they're loving this Kadarius Toney. They're looking at that. They're looking at that like a nice 16-ounce ribeye right now with their mouth watering. But then they remember it's the Green Bay Packers, and they will not select a guy like that in the first round. I don't think they're going to go out and get a toy in the first round. They're going to go out and get a guy like Zaven Collins to put in that linebacking core and solidify that defense some more, because Zaven Collins is a true sideline-to-sideline guy. He can rush for you off the edge if you want. He can play that middle linebacker. He's a jack of all trades at that linebacker position. I think he just helps shore up that defense, because with Blake Martinez going, they've been struggling at linebacker, so Zaven Collins can really strengthen that linebacking core and help them out. Now moving on to number 30. The Buffalo Bills are on the clock, and they're looking at an interesting board. Yet again, I'm not going running back. I don't think you draft a running back this high, especially when you've spent 2 third-round picks in the last 2 years on running backs. You got to go with Singletary and Moss. So right now, if I'm them, I'm looking at O-line. I'm looking at edge. I'm looking at maybe linebacker, because I thought it was almost a sure thing that Matt Milano would be back. But it seems like Matt Milano is actually going to be leaving and testing free agency from the Buffalo Bills. I saw that report. And if you look at their stats with Matt Milano on and off the field, it was a huge difference. Their defense was significantly worse with Milano off the field. So the more I'm talking about, an interesting pick here would be Nick Bolton, who's another great linebacker in this draft, who's definitely a first-round talent. You could go attack corner. I think Asante Samuel Jr. would be the next best guy available here for them. I'm actually, with Matt Milano leaving, and you saw the importance of their linebackers, I'm going to go Nick Bolton here for the Buffalo Bills. Now, like I said, this is assuming Matt Milano leaves. If he re-signs, I don't think they'll pick Nick Bolton. But with him leaving, which it sounded like he wants to test free agency, we're going Nick Bolton at 30 for the Buffalo Bills, because linebacker 2 seems like a very important position if you look at the statistics for that team. Moving on to 31, the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, we saw their O-line. They definitely need help there. Leatherwood and Mayfield are probably the guys you're looking at. Maybe Cosme if you're looking. Receiver, Kadarius Toney wouldn't even be fair. Kadarius Toney would not be fair with that offense. They'd find great ways to get him the ball. They're going to go Kadarius Toney, aren't they? I wasn't even planning on looking at Kadarius Toney for the Chiefs, but if you look back at it, I mean, last year we said the same thing about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, they're not going to get him, right? He'd be too great of a fit there. Like, they'd find so many ways to use him. and would it be unfair? And that's how I'm looking. I'm sorry for anyone who plays in the AFC West, but this pick would not be fair if they get Kadarius Toney, because Andy Reid is one of the brightest minds in the league at drawing creative plays, and the ways they could get Toney the ball would just be disgusting, with also Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And hey, you know what they say? You can never have enough weapons. That's what they do with Kadarius Toney at 31. They're not happy with scoring 35 a game. They want to score 40 a game and make sure no one can stop them, because they had a rough Super Bowl. Now going on to the Super Bowl champions, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Congratulations to all the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans for winning a Super Bowl. You're looking here at pick 32. They have an interesting way, and they can go a lot of places. They don't have too many holes, and I'm going to actually go with best player available. I'm going to go Jayson Oweh, athletic freak out of Penn State. Didn't have a lot of sack production, but that doesn't really worry me when a guy, I think believe he's around 250, and I'm pretty sure could run a 4.3, 4.4 is what the rumors are out there. That's freaky, and that's scary. And when you have guys like JPP and Shaq Barrett's on the franchise tag. JPP's getting old. I don't know how many years he has left on his contract. Those are older dudes. Get you a young dude like Jayson Oweh, give you some flexibility at that position, and it just wouldn't even be fair, that defense. But anyway, that's going to be the end of my first round. So like I said, you make sure you guys subscribe so you can keep tracks on when I get my second round. I'm going to go through this whole second round of picks. Real quick before we go, let's just touch on the best players still available as a preview. I think the best players still available, obviously Etienne and Harris will go probably early second. Still got a couple tackles on the board, Leatherwood and Mayfield. You got Carlos Basham, who's a fringe first rounder, probably early second, but he's probably the best edge still available. Quarterback class, don't see a lot going in the second. You could maybe see a Trask or Newman if some team reaches on them. Wide receivers, still a pretty strong deep class at receiver. Still some strong corners, and then still some good safeties. My boy Darius Washington still on the board. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get into that second round in a couple days. Look forward to that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did. Let me know in the comments if there's any picks you would change, or if there's any picks you loved. But yeah, hopefully you guys have a great day. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you for that second round mock draft in a couple days.